A couple years ago, I went back to visit my grandparents for the first time in a long while. They live out in one of those Midwest towns that barely shows up on the map. One gas station, one diner, a church, and a whole lot of corn. It was early fall. That stretch where the days are still warm, but the evenings start to bite. The corn was high, well above my head, and the fields ran right up to the edge of their backyard. I'd forgotten how quiet it could get out there. No sirens, no cars, just wind and birds. I was staying in the small room off the kitchen, same one I slept in as a kid. There's a narrow dirt trail that cuts through the cornfield next to their house. I used to walk it all the time, just to feel surrounded by green. The second evening I was there, I took that walk again, just to stretch my legs. That's when I saw her. A woman standing perfectly still deep in the corn, maybe 15 yards off the trail. Pale blue dress, long hair hanging in front of her face. She didn't move, didn't even flinch when I looked right at her. I froze, called out. No answer. She just stood there facing me, not blinking, like she'd been waiting. I backed off and walked home quick. Told myself she was probably just someone from town or maybe a scarecrow I hadn't noticed before. But scarecrows don't wear shoes or breathe. That night I told my grandma what I saw. She went real still for a second, then smiled too quick and said probably just a neighbor's daughter messing around. My grandpa didn't say anything, just kept chewing, didn't look up once. Next morning I mentioned it to a guy at the diner. He lowered his voice and said, "Stay out of those fields after dark." That was all. Then he changed the subject. It didn't sit right. I started asking around more. Everyone got cagey. Some changed the subject, some gave me looks like I'd stepped on something sacred. One older woman cashier at the market pulled me aside and said, "We don't talk about that. For your own sake, don't go back out there." So of course I did. Late the next afternoon, I walked the trail again. Sun low, wind light. No one in sight. But she was there again. Closer this time. Same dress, same stance. Still no movement. But now she was standing in the trail, not off to the side. And her head was tilted like she was listening. I called out again. Still nothing. Then I blinked, and she was gone. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way she stood there, not menacing, just wrong, like she wasn't looking at me, but through me. Around 2 a.m., I got up to get water. Looked out the kitchen window on instinct. She was in the yard, right at the edge of the corn. Same blue dress. Head turned toward the house. Still not moving. I dropped to the floor, heart seizing in my chest. Crawled out of view like a scared animal. My throat locked up. For a second I thought if I moved wrong, she'd move too. I lay on the floor for 10 minutes, listening. Nothing happened. But I didn't stand until sunrise. Next morning I didn't say anything. Neither did my grandparents. But I noticed my grandpa had moved his chair to face the back door. And the shotgun he normally kept in the closet was now leaning in the corner of the living room. I tried to leave that day. Packed my bag, told them I had a work thing. My car wouldn't start. Battery was fine, gas was fine, just nothing. Like the ignition was pretending not to exist. Later that night, I went out to the porch to clear my head. She was across the street. No wind. No sound, just her. And now I could see her eyes. They weren't angry. They looked tired, like she was waiting for me to stop resisting. I stayed up until morning, didn't sleep, just sat in the kitchen with the light on, every curtain shut. I was done asking questions. At sunrise, I went to town, asked the diner guy straight up what was happening. He sighed. Long and slow, like this conversation had been waiting to happen. There was a girl, he said, years ago. Walked into the fields one night and never came out. Family searched for weeks. Cops gave up. People moved on. Then he looked me dead in the eye. She comes back when someone forgets. When folks stop warning, sometimes she's just there. Quiet. Like memory that doesn't fade. I asked, why me? He paused, then said, because you asked. I asked if anyone ever tried talking to her. He didn't answer, just said, you're leaving tomorrow. I'll make sure your car works. And it did. I didn't say goodbye, just packed and left as soon as the sun came up. As I pulled down the gravel road, I looked back once. She was in the field, facing away this time, like she didn't care anymore. Or maybe like she knew I was gone. Or worse, like I was someone else's problem now. Since then, I've learned not to chase every answer. Not because I'm afraid of what's out there, but because I'm afraid of what stays with you after. I don't walk trails I don't know. I don't look too long when something feels off. And I don't ask questions people clearly stopped asking for a reason. Some things don't come looking for you. They wait for you to come looking for them. They told me I'd be the only one there overnight. That's why the pay was decent. 1 week into the job, I realized they never asked why I kept leaving the lights on. Maybe they already knew. A couple summers ago, I took a job watching over a summer camp out by a lake. It wasn't a big operation, just a few old cabins, a mess hall, a shed with canoes. They weren't running sessions that year, so they needed someone to do night patrol while the property was idle. The ad said light security, but really it was more like babysitting buildings. I'd do a lap around the grounds at dusk, lock up the storage check for raccoons in the dumpsters, then crash in the main office with a space heater and an old TV. I was told nobody else would be on site at night. Maintenance came during the day. And I liked that. Quiet, easy pay, just me and the forest. It wasn't until the third night that I noticed the cameras. They were old, tucked in the eaves under the cabin roofs, big boxy things with faded plastic. I hadn't seen them before because they blended into the wood. At first I assumed they were for bear activity or something. But when I found the control room, that's when it got weird. It was in the back of the equipment shed. A dusty panel of monitors and labeled switches. Camp, a Camp B Mess Trail, 1 Lake Overlook, and Cabin 7. That last one caught me, because there was no Cabin 7 on the map they gave me. Only 6. I flicked the switch. Static. Then a faint flicker of black and white inside of a cabin. Bunk beds, sheets perfectly folded. But something was off. One of the beds had an impression, like someone had just stood up. I turned it off. Next night I checked again. All cabins dark. No movement. But when I got to Cabin 7's feed, the lamp was on. I grabbed my flashlight and walked the grounds, counted every cabin twice. 6. I even used my phone to check the satellite image. There was a 7th. Off to the west, tucked behind the tree line. No path led to it. Just tall grass and silence. When I stood in front of where it should have been, my walkie crackled. Just once. Like it caught breath. I stood there for a long time. I didn't go in. Later that night, back in the office, the light on the monitor was off again. But now one of the bunks in Cabin 2 was unmade. That was new. No one had keys but me. I started keeping the monitor on while I slept. I'd wake up 2 or 3 times a night to check the feeds. Sometimes they were normal. Other times things had changed, small things. A chair pushed back from a table. A door cracked open an inch wider. I stopped turning off the lights. Every cabin, every hallway, every corner I had access to, I left them glowing. Like maybe light could push something back I didn't understand. I started wondering if the lights were keeping something out, or just showing it the way. 2 nights later, I woke up around 3 a.m. The monitor wall was glowing. Every cabin feed was on. Cabin 2's light was on. Cabin 5's door was open. And Cabin 7 there was movement. Not direct, not full body, just a subtle shift in the grainy black and white. Like someone had passed in front of the camera but didn't register fully. For a second, Cabin 7's screen caught something strange like a hand on the glass. But it wasn't on the inside. I felt something crawl across my scalp, not physical, but like a thought too loud. Like whatever was watching from that screen had noticed me back. I shut everything off, packed my stuff. On my way out, I stopped by the shed. I wanted to leave the key. That's when I noticed the logbook. Every night I'd been there, someone had logged entries, each one with a time, lights on, Cabin 2 disturbed, shadow at Cabin 7. None of the entries were mine. I flipped back to earlier pages, weeks, months, all signed with the same handwriting, the same shifts, different names. I called the company next day, told them I quit. The guy didn't even ask why, just said, "Okay, thanks for helping out." A few weeks later, I checked the camp's site out of curiosity. They'd updated the info. Now it said Cabins 1-5 available for summer sessions. Office monitored nightly. No mention of Cabin 7. The note I found in the logbook had a different pen. One line at the bottom, "Don't end your shift late." Last week I got a package, no return address. Inside was a flash drive, one file, labeled with the date of my last night. I didn't open it. But sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I see the faint glow of static, like it's still running, still watching. I haven't thrown it away. I don't know why. You can unplug a camera, but not the feeling of being seen. Sometimes the quietest jobs have the most eyes on them. I don't take isolated gigs anymore. I don't work alone. And I never ignore a feed labeled with something that doesn't exist. Not everything hidden is forgotten. Some things are tucked away on purpose. And sometimes the only reason they need someone to watch is because they already know something's moving. Summer, 5 friends and I booked a last-minute beach house. The listing popped up out of nowhere. Beachfront, super cheap, glowing reviews, and oddly barely any bookings for the entire season. That should have been a red flag. But we were just looking for a break. Cheap seafood, late-night swims, stupid drinking games. Nothing complicated. The host met us in person, mid-30s, sunglasses on even in the shade, handed over one key and said, "Have fun. It's better when it's full." That line stuck with me. Inside, the place felt staged. Neat rows of bottled water, printed guest rules in each room. Matching towel sets folded with hotel-level precision. Too polished, too prepared. But the first night, normal. Loud music, pizza boxes, sunscreen, sticky couches. Just 6 friends being idiots by the ocean. On day 2, I opened the closet in my room and found a sheet of paper taped inside. A printed guest list, week of July 11th. 7 names. Just initials. We were 6. I showed the list to 2 of my friends. They rolled their eyes, said maybe the cleaning crew reused templates. But the initials didn't match any of us. Not even close. That night someone joked, "Who left their towel on my chair? 7 beach towels were drying on the rail." I counted again. Mine was still inside. After that, it snowballed. Bathroom fan whirring when no one used it. A pair of flip-flops by the back door that didn't belong to anyone. The patio door sometimes unlocked itself. And the feeling every time we walked into a room, it felt like we were interrupting something. Like the air had just shifted back into place. One night, I walked into the kitchen and saw Matt, quiet guy, not much for jokes, standing perfectly still at the sink, staring out the window. No drink, no movement. "Hey," I said. "You good?" He blinked, waiting, then frowned, like he didn't remember saying it. I made a joke the next day, called it the house guest. Everyone laughed. Until Matt asked later, seriously, "You think it's real?" That same morning, I noticed the microwave's reflection flicker twice before going black. I was alone. That night, while brushing my teeth, I heard a soft voice behind the bathroom door say, "I'm not done in here yet." I froze. No one was in the hallway. On night 4, I woke up to footsteps in the hall. Slow, rhythmic. They paused at every door. Mine last. Then silence. Everyone denied being up. Chris dragged his mattress into the living room. Said the hallway gave him chest pressure. I tried calling the host. No answer. I sent a message through the app. Hours later, he replied, "Old list. No worries." That night, Sam pointed out the guest rules card had changed. It now said, "House must remain full." Full. Matt said, "I think it wants someone," then refused to explain. Just past midnight, I went to the kitchen to grab water. The air felt staged, like the furniture had just landed there seconds ago. The fridge hummed, then stopped. I turned and saw Matt again, standing by the fridge, still. "You're not on the list," he said. I laughed, nervous. "What?" He blinked, looked puzzled. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Later that night, Matt asked me an odd question. "When did we arrive, morning or night?" I said morning. He shook his head. "I remember it being dusk. I remember walking in while the sun set." None of us remembered it the same way. The next day, Emma found a pile of sand by the back door. Just a neat little mound. No one had been to the beach since that first afternoon, and it hadn't rained. By evening, Chris said he couldn't remember what the host looked like. None of us could. No face, just sunglasses. The final night during dinner, the lights cut out. A storm had rolled in no warning. Wind slammed the siding. We lit candles huddled together. The wind wasn't just outside. It crept into the cracks. We heard it under the doors. My phone buzzed. "Device added to network guest tablet." Nobody brought a tablet. The back door rattled once, then stopped. Emma's phone lit up. Then mine. Then Matt's. Each of us got the same alert: new member connected. Guest 7. No photo, no name, just a blinking dot on a house map overlay positioned in the hallway. We froze. Sam whispered, "No one go look." Chris got up anyway, stepped toward the hall. I swear the candlelight bent like something moved past us too fast to see. The hallway light clicked on, then off. We pulled all our mattresses into the living room. Nobody wanted to be alone. Candles lit, phones dimmed the storm raging outside. Somewhere past 3 a.m., Sam whispered, "Did you hear that? A light knocking, not firm, brushing, like fingers over wood." Matt started muttering, rocking slightly. I leaned closer. "6 is wrong, 6 is wrong, 6 is wrong." Then his voice changed. He looked straight at me. "You never said your name." Everyone turned. "I don't remember him arriving," Chris said slowly. Emma added, "I thought he came with you." I was frozen. Laughing felt wrong. So I stood. They stood too. Sam reached forward and grabbed my wrist. Tight. "Don't leave. We're not full yet." Then the kitchen light blinked back on. In the microwave's reflection, we weren't 6, we were 7. At dawn, we packed. Nobody spoke until we hit the highway. When I glanced back, something was behind the curtain. Just a shape. Still. Watching. Days later, I checked the listing. Same house. New host photo. New name. Same tagline. Best for groups of 7. I've replayed that final night in my head 100 times. But in my memory, I'm not looking out. I'm looking in. From behind someone else's chair. I used to think vacation houses were just walls and locks. Now I count. 6 toothbrushes, 6 bags, 6 people. If there's ever an extra towel, I don't ask who it belongs to. I ask who still hasn't arrived.